So the importance of developing cultural competence in a successful inclusive education. The key concepts when we refer to this title are diversity and inclusion, culture, with this culture, cultural competencies. The term of inclusive universities was also mentioned in the second presentation. An inclusive university is always a learning environment, and we have to refer also to the research and studies regarding inclusion and the competencies and training, which was also mentioned in the other presentations. So the support of students with different profiles, interests, needs, and backgrounds represents a qualitative image of programs offered by universities, extending their programs and services, promoting an improved position, but I'm very eager to say that, and responsibility in the community, getting funds and projects that support implementation of inclusion, accessibility, and development of competencies of staff and students, assuring the mission of universities that relate to community-oriented services. So I will say it also in a few words, but I would like to mention it. It's not only the training of the professors, the academic staff in the university to be more aware of cultural differences, of how we could support cultural differences, but also how they teach the students to become cultural aware, and how they can then later on in their practices and in their educational context can put into practice what they have been taught about these issues. Inclusive universities, and it's not just, usually we refer to many aspects of inclusion and barriers of inclusion, but we have to move forward to think of a culture of inclusion, and these universities become and promote the culture of inclusion. So as I said, I come from a disability background, but more and more we need to extend these thoughts and reflections to any other students who, as I said, are supporting this diversity that the student population are more and more encounter. So raise awareness and disseminate programs for students with disabilities, offer accommodation, evaluate possible needed accommodation, hire staff that develop accessible programs and resources. Because here, just a few words, sometimes it is very difficult for universities and from academic staff to think of how they should support inclusion and how they should refer to. Maybe they don't have the information, maybe they don't have the knowledge, or they don't feel like doing something from certain reasons. But this is how you have to hire, you have to, or if you don't hire, you have to think of projects in order to make this more visible and more tangible also for academic staff. Yes, they can be a little bit resistant to change, but in time, if we say that we don't do it, or we are not used to doing it, or it is good as it is now, because or sometimes they have the intention. We have to acknowledge that sometimes even professors have the intention, but it is a longer way, a longer process to put that into practice and into reality. Equip with technology, train academic and administrative staff, implement accessibility, implement intercultural education and diversity education from early education years, and communication and interaction between persons from diverse backgrounds support diverse relationships and receptiveness to diverse ideas. They encourage dialogue and can develop a sense of shared responsibility at an institution. So I was really happy to see also the previous presentation, because this is a very concrete modality of how you put that into practice. Because I always say inclusion, let's talk about inclusion, not in words, but in actions. Because if we Google inclusive education, inclusive universities, inclusive, there are millions, let's say, sites and programs. But let's see, for our university, for our programs, for our services, how can we put this into action? What kind of typologies of students, background, interests, needs they have, and how can we support that. We all know that learning is very much related with emotion, with a sense of belonging, with a sense of identity. If the students cannot find that in our programs and in relation with the professors or the academic staff, I use the general term of professors, but academic staff, what about their learning? What about their outcomes, their learning outcomes? And assuming and taking that responsibility of becoming that professional that the professor wants him or her to be. Also, Banks describes 4 ways that inclusive excellence can be achieved by the acceptance of students. It's not, you see, it's a difference between knowing someone, tolerating someone, understanding someone, and finally accepting someone. You know, acknowledging the fact that he's different, and I'm okay with that. I can relate to that, and we can meet in the middle. So conflicts can be really down if we are trying to support this idea. So by the acceptance of students, faculty, and staff of diverse backgrounds, incorporating diversity in educational materials while also creating events where students can come together, creating an environment when everyone is welcome, and enhancing the entire institutional community's knowledge of diversity. The idea of you, Professor, with the students' associations, they are very strong. They have to be very strong, but we have to move forward. I mean, it's not you. Sometimes we feel it that it's students and professors, and but something that they promote, something that they believe in, something that they are, you know, promoting for all the students can be really accepted by academic staff and can be incorporated in their way of interacting, communicating, or even creating the learning experiences of the students. Some barriers, there are policies and regulations regarding the diversity. I mean, I don't think that there is any other university who would say officially, or who would promote himself itself as against diversity. This is something that I don't think that nowadays it can be heard somewhere. But still, there are stigmas about students with disabilities, negative attitudes regarding a little bit of assessment, how you assess, how you I don't know, how you value, and lack of understanding among campus administrators, faculty, and staff. So yes, we put focus on academic staff, but we should not disconsider the fact that universities are also administrative staff and secretaries, and many conflicts are even there in secretarial procedures or communication or so, or in the campus. So yes, maybe we are better in class, but we should think that this is also a responsibility. Curricular negative attitudes, as I said, on behalf of the staff, and of course the term of accessibility regarding architectural barriers, if we consider specifically the people with disabilities. There are non-supportive attitudes, and as it was mentioned in the first presentation, students perceive that faculty often are lacking sensitivity and awareness of their needs and report a sense of intimidation and rejection. The faculty can be skeptical and mistrusting of students with non-visible disabilities. This is also something that it is more specific as a theme, and I will not go into that, but we have to also think that some of these vulnerabilities are not even expressed by the student. So we might even not know that the student has a certain vulnerability, and we then cannot support it. But then just in an idea, why is the student mistrustful and skeptical with us as a department, as a teacher, as a mentor, so why does he not share or express the need to be supported in one way or another? Sometimes accommodations that the faculties are less willing to make. such as overlooking spelling errors. So again, in the terms of assessment, we are very rigid with the assessment, and we think that when we assess, and all kind of errors might be how should I say, acknowledged during the evaluation, we do not try to understand what is the meaning of that error, what is the meaning of that let's say a lower performance. We just evaluate the final performance. So what should we do about it? And also another very interesting thing regarding this is that we have the reduced willingness to provide accommodations because we are also uncertain that we are not fair to the other students, which also we have to think about. So what is culture? Culture is a pattern of learned beliefs, values, behaviors that are shared and identified with and within a group. So it refers to language, it refers to styles of communication, to practices, to customs, to views on roles, but also on relationships and interactions. And it is very, you see, regarding cultural competence. What is cultural competence and why should we develop our cultural competencies? Because it's a set of congruent behaviors, attitudes, and policies that come together in a system. And also the word system was mentioned today, agency or among professionals, and enables that system, agency, or those professionals to work effectively in cross cultural situations. So it is to be qualified for the task of culture as in having effective, appropriate, legitimate skills, experience, abilities, and perhaps qualities in the matter of culture. Also, one has legitimacy in doing, being, in expressing, understanding, interpreting culture, both myself, I mean my own culture, and that of others, and also interact effectively with people from different cultural backgrounds without feeling, I don't know, in a form of because lack of information, or because of social exclusion, or because of previous experiences that you kind of feel threatened, or I don't know, in some way that you cannot do the interaction in the proper way. So the cultural, it's not enough to be as a professional cultural competent, but the system has to become a cultural competent, because the system, if this is something that people know from the beginning, that the system is cultural competent and promotes these values like diversity, also regarding self-assessment, the consciousness, being aware of the fact that cultures interact, and you cannot be anymore in a position that this is somewhere far from you. And now when I'm saying to this, I was in a conversation, just do I have the time? Yeah, just one idea. In a master class, when we were talking about inclusion, one master student, because I was asking them to think of activities that are also differentiating content and methods and evaluation for children with different kind of vulnerabilities. And when she said that, well, she's in a very good school and she cannot even think of how she can do differentiation for a pupil who learns differently, I was just just thinking, how can you just say that you can't not even think of how to differentiate when you, I don't know. So you see this barrier. And then I was also encouraging her, okay, let's see, putting her in the real case. Let's see, if you have a child with a different kind of learning opportunities and way of learning and communication, can you think of modifying your activity for him? And finally she succeeded. But at the beginning she said, no, I cannot imagine how can I do it, because I cannot imagine about myself that I could do it. So you see, adaptations to diversity are really, really, and I always tell students and teachers in teacher training, the more you know, it's in interacting and teaching various and diverse students, the more competent you are. And also not just the more competent you are, but you are also enriched by these abilities and competencies and by the learning experiences that you have with the student who has a diverse way of learning, communicating, background, and everything. So you become enriched in this way, and you don't have to feel threatened, as I said, or I don't know, they do not diminish your competencies, but they enrich you. So
sorry, Andrea, I'm just wary of the time. If you could slowly wrap up, please, so that we also have time to
yes,
discuss.
well, I started a little bit later. Okay. But I will finish it now. So development of cultural competencies, it's for academic staff and students. We need to have the training and to appreciate, as I said, individual and cultural diversity, and to be aware of own cultural biases. So we need just to understand the context and the diversity and needs. This is just a few recommendations. And one I believe in very much is use a sense of humor. So in a very positive ending, this was my presentation, the resources. Thank you. This is my mail address. And if you consider that we can share some discussions, I'm very open. I really believe in education in our role. I really believe that we can change, no matter how resistant can be. Sometimes, but yes, and I wish you professional and personal successes, and it was glad to be together with you today. Thank you.